Hello, welcome to another episode of Self-Love for Everyday Superheroes. I am your host, Sacred Walker, founder of SLS Academy and the Kumba Health International Coaching Institute. So glad that you have come to join us today. Today, you're in for a special treat. We have with us today Dr. Carrie Collins. That is Dr. Carrie, who is committed to, and we will be speaking more about today, what truly is confidence. And why does it matter as you navigate through challenge and change without looking at the ways that imposter syndrome can get in the way of that? So this is really important. Once again, we're going to be talking today some gem droppers. What truly is confidence? Why does it matter as you navigate through challenge and change? And how do you do it without imposter syndrome getting in the way? Now, what makes Carrie Collins able to speak about the subject today as a conversation partner? Carrie Collins comes from a long background of both education and in the legal field. For fun fact about her is that she is the executive producer of several British short films. So she comes in with a creative hat. Professionally, she'll speak to her audience from this background of strategic planning, leadership development, and using data to inform decision-making. So she is making confident and bold decisions as an executive every day through challenge and change. And as one herself, I am so excited to be in conversation today with her. Something that describes her that she has overcome has been her background of being a shy, timid child to becoming a Wonder Woman. So she is the person to be speaking today about what it means to show up with confidence as an everyday superhero. Professor, lawyer, business consultant with over 5 years in the field. We're so excited for this conversation. So make sure that you go ahead and log in below by subscribing, by going ahead and leaving an amazing review, and making sure that you comment below so that you can stay connected to Dr. Carrie Collins and to our show. So today, as you know, is about educational purposes. If you're seeking deeper support, do reach out to our office where our team can make sure to connect with you, or you can connect with me directly so we can do a deeper dive into some of our subjects. We're going to be touching in on imposter syndrome, things around courage, and looking at the ways that confidence is essential through changes and navigating change. If something gets kicked up and triggered, do know that we are here for you. Our coaches will be here to hold hands, lock in, and whether it's individual support or team support, we'll make sure to take you to that next level. But know that Dr. Carrie Collins, with her amazing experience, comes to the table ready to bring us some nuggets into this conversation. And I want to make sure that you understand that this is not just about how we're working with showing up confidently as individual executives, as individual high-achieving creatives, ambitious leaders, and everyday superheroes, but how we're navigating change on the other side of COVID, on the other side of so many issues that are happening in our world, how we're navigating them individually in our relationships and in our teams. And so, as someone who is committed to helping transform the lives of visionary leaders who are looking to deepen self-love, transform barriers to well-being so that you can improve your mind-body health, and so that you can make sure to launch your vision, that higher vision of excellence, so that you can take your goals to the next level. I am so excited about the breakthrough barriers that are going to be happening in our conversation today. And so I want to make sure that we get a chance to hear from this one shy yet bold superwoman who's going to be joining with us today. I know for me personally, as someone who's shown up at the table again and again and experienced what it meant to have my confidence chipped away and had to show up in various circumstances as a leader. I am so excited about hearing the vantage point and POV, the perspective of Dr. Carrie Collins. So you landed here for a reason, and I'm so glad that you are here. You landed here for a purpose, on purpose. Let's go ahead and get started. Love Nation, friend, colleague, leader, pioneer, I am so excited to have an amazing guest with us today. Welcome to the show, Dr. Carrie Collins. Perfect. So glad to have you here, Dr. Collins. So great to see you.
You too. You too. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh my gosh. And for those who are joining on the podcast, I need you to hop on over as well to YouTube and see this glowing powerhouse of a woman we have in front of us today as we talk about bold confidence. So tell me, what listeners want to know. Tell us a moment that shifted for you when you describe what it meant to show up from this shy to being this Wonder Woman. What was a moment of confidence shift for you in how you show up today as a leader?
Sure. So picture it, 1994, Paris, France. And I had arrived for a year of studying abroad. And I remember landing in the airport and calling my mother. I mean, at that point, I had to find a landline, but calling my mother and saying, whose bright idea was this? To fast forward a few weeks, and I walked down the Champs-Élysées like I owned the place. And it was just something about being truly on my own, and in a strange land with a language that I, thought I knew, and just navigating how am I gonna make it through this year? And it was transformational in terms of how I viewed myself, how I viewed the world, how I viewed friendships, relationships. I met another student my third day there, and she and I were inseparable. We still keep in contact and visit with each other. So the two of us together, I think that having that reinforcement really helped. But it was that year that turned me, I think, from somebody who was shy and reticent, even at the beginning of that year, to somebody who had no qualms about very much at all.
Absolutely. And for those of us who are tuning in, who love travel, who've been wanting to do more of it, can appreciate the power of showing up and having a shift. So tell us, what was it about that time period when you showed up and all of a sudden you realized, okay, I need to bring out this other part of myself? What did you discover in that season of your life?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think just that I could do it. I could navigate the Paris metro. I could navigate the city streets. I could navigate grocery stores. I mean, there wasn't museums, travel. We traveled to various cities that were close by. I mean, there wasn't anything that was limiting us or me. And, I was in my element. This was really where I always say my heart belongs in Paris, and my retirement plan is to buy a little flat on the Ile Saint Louis and retire. And I've told my husband he could come and visit, but that's my place. And so I think just finding such a connection to the place and the people, and thinking I'm doing it. I am making this work. And it was, again, as I said, it was transformational for me.
Absolutely. And what I love about it is what you're describing is this place of, one, setting your next level up, right? Who can appreciate tuning in? For those who are, comment below if you can relate to this, like this next level up, this place of, okay, this is what I plan to call in and manifest in this next place. And also I'm hearing you speak into what those who are tuning in, if you can relate to either the immigrant experience or the other experience of showing up and all of a sudden this other part of yourself you discovered, right? Of navigating this other strength, right? That imposter syndrome didn't have space for. And so I can really appreciate the sweetness and the gem in this. So if you were to say, you know what, this is this big moment that this experience happened. And for those who are frequenting the show, we can appreciate the level of looking at self-love, self-care, and success, and how all of those elements tie in. What is a way that you feel that piece of what you discovered about yourself during that season in your life shows up today when you have moments where you're in new terrains and you have to navigate challenge and change as a leader? Tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, I think, it's funny. I haven't ever really stopped to think about it that way. But the fact of the matter is that the young woman that I was when I came back to the United States after that, that's the young woman that has grown and changed. I mean, I made, giant strides. And so now it's unafraid to try new things, unafraid, except sushi. I won't do sushi, but unafraid to go new places, whether that's a new job. I mean, I've had some pretty consistent chunks of time at jobs, but a new project. I'm not afraid to take on new projects, and I'm not afraid to, I know what I can do, and I know what I can't do, and I know when I need to rely on others for their expertise and their help. And I know when Google will hold the answer for me. And, if I can, though, I would like to touch on, and maybe we'll get to it, but I have banished imposter syndrome from my vocabulary. And if you would like, I'd love to tell you why.
Sure, we're going to get into that in a moment, but I want to touch
Excellent.
on something you said that I think is so key and important, because I want to make sure that we do not miss any of these gems for those who are tuning in. I think something that you said that is so important to catch before we move forward is the power of how you show up in different spaces about what you know you can and cannot do. Many leaders, myself included, have had to come to a shift in this place when we show up to these spaces and we're asked to say yes to something, and we want to show up and say we can. But there can be just as much power in being able to say, is this my core genius, right? Is this something that speaks to my authentic strength? And if it isn't, being able to make more space so that I can say yes to more when no is not quite aligned. And so I really want to acknowledge that for a moment. I think that that's so important for folks who are tuning in, know what to say yes to and know what to say no to, so that you can really align your authentic vision. So now that we're going to touch it on that, let's talk about a couple of misconceptions, right? Because I have my own theory about imposter syndrome, and I want to make sure that I hear yours. So it sounds like there's some misconceptions on the table, right, around what things are and why you banished it, as you say, from your vocabulary, right? So what makes you say that? Like, I have banished this term from my vocabulary. What is that strong statement you just made?
So what I find is that anytime you get a group of women leaders together, inevitably someone says, let's talk about imposter syndrome. And I can't take credit for this. There was another woman executive that I was speaking to who said, let's not talk about imposter syndrome. Let's talk about imposter moments, because they are fleeting and we learn and we move on. So rather than the concept of a syndrome, right, which sounds very heavy and long lasting and in some cases crippling, the idea of an imposter moment is, ooh, I'm not sure I'm feeling my full self here. I'm not sure I feel like Wonder Woman today, but all right, what do I need to do? I need to acknowledge it. I need to say, all right, what can I learn from it? And I need to go, okay, and that's done, and then move on. And I really think it's so important for women to grasp onto, however they articulate it, that imposter moments happen to everybody at various points in your life. But it's what you do with those moments, just like what you do with any moments, that really defines then who you become as a leader. So yes, from time to time, I am definitely gripped with an imposter moment, but I am far more likely to embrace the fake it till you make it philosophy, and rather than the imposter syndrome. And that confidence is what has been my through line through my whole adulthood is, yes, I know what I'm doing. I'm just going to go over here very quietly and I'm going to Google this and I'm going to figure it out. And so faking it until you making it is the mantra that I have adopted that allows me to say, that was one imposter moment. I'm done now.
What I appreciate about what you're saying, which I think is so key, and I agree and disagree with. So we're gonna do a little wrestle here, right? For those who are tuning in, we get to be in this space, because all of what you're sharing is so powerful, right? Is that what you're speaking into is what happens when you have a moment of any kind of feeling of insecurity, which is human, right? We get to have these touch points. And I think that's so important. And I have a belief equal to yours, but different, that sometimes we don't get to talk about environments. And I think that brings back to strategy around what is the room speaking into? I might be showing up as a woman and I might be showing up as whatever category, feeling like I'm the only of something. And maybe it's not that I'm experiencing imposter syndrome. Maybe it's that the environment is just not yet figuring out how to create space for me, and I'm creating space for myself, right? And so that is also, which I think you're also leaning into, is what does confidence look like? When you walk into a room, you may have on your bed, like I love wearing a bad power suit, right? You have your bad power suit on, fierce, exactly ready for it, cropped, done to the T, to the nines. And you might walk in the room and go, oh my gosh, this is, I'm not in Kansas anymore. How do I show up in a different way and still hold confidence? So can you speak into that also, that moment where you might be a leader and you might be experiencing imposter syndrome because people are still trying to figure out, what do we do with you who are X, Y, and Z? How do you still show up confidently anyway?
Yeah, no, a bunch of ideas. I think it's great. It's not that in the scenario you described, it's not that you have imposter syndrome. It's that everyone else in that room is going, who is this imposter potentially?
That part.
That, yes. So,
Mhm.
but you did say there's something that I love. Another saying is, if there is no seat at the table, bring your own chair.
Mhm.
And if there is no table, build your own.
That's right.
Now, that works in some cases, which is where I think your point is well taken, that, okay, so I may be all that in a bag of chips, but if I walk into a room where I'm the only woman in a power suit, and it's a bunch of guys in khakis and, Patagonia vests, how do I retain that confidence? And I think what I try to do is find common ground as quickly as possible. So I happen to be a pretty rabid NFL fan. So 9 times out of 10, and I love situational awareness. I'm always yapping at my kids, pay attention to what's around you. But the concept of reading the room, right? If you walk in and it's a bunch of, tech bros in khakis and things, then, what's the first you think about? Hey, did you see that article in Inc. about this new company? Or did you see? And so you're just trying to find something that will establish that, oh yeah, we do have something in common. It may not be readily apparent, but there's something. And listen, I've been in situations where it doesn't work. I've tried football. I've tried, tech. I've tried, and I'm still not quite finding the groove, but I'm trying. And if I've tried several ways and I'm still not getting through, then that's where I go, okay, so they're just not my people. And I just have to find a way to communicate the points I'm here to make and get done what I came here to get done. So, so your point is well taken, that if you may be fine, but when you're faced with a group who just turns and looks at you, with, my husband calls it the RCA dog look, then finding common ground is how I try to approach those situations.
Perfect. And I think that brings us to our next point. So folks, catch the gem droppers here, right? Like, know your lane. Yes and no. What can and can I not do so that I can move from a sense of, that brings us back to work-life balance. Point number 2, which I think is so powerful that you're bringing up, which is a piece around bridge building. Oftentimes, imposter syndrome, or the way that it's claimed to be, says that somehow I am completely other. And now everything inside of me, I'm bringing complete attention to it. And it's when the anxiety takes over, that's when it goes from like imposter moment to, oh my goodness, this is all of me. And what you're saying is that moment doesn't have to define me. But I think you take it a step further, which is even more powerful, right? What happens when I look at, you know what, maybe there's other things that have separated us, but what are the things that can be a bridge, right? And so from a psychological perspective, when we can begin to let our anxiety reduce and do our de-escalation internally, and we can let that confidence voice shine, then we can say, hey, what is the article? What is the connection? What is the NFL star? Did you hear about Tom Brady, by the way, who just retired for the first time or the second time or the third time, right? All things, exactly. But I think that is so key. So that brings me then to the work that you do, because I happen to have seen it in full effect that you are a bridge builder. I've been fortunate to have been able to connect with your own team and be able to see the way that you show up powerfully in leadership. and as well, are pioneering in consulting in the field. So tell me, what are the ways that, if I can shout it from the rooftops and celebrate the gift that you bring to the world, how has bridge building been pivotal to not only how you show up confidently, but how you help others show up confidently working with one another?
Sure, sure. And it's funny. I often refer to it as connecting the dots. So whether we're building bridges, but that my superpower is taking a lot of information, a lot of disparate information, synthesizing it, and then coming up with clear steps, clear next steps, clear points. And so the idea of building bridges is very similar. I have been in relationship-based, work my whole career, and finding that tiny little bridge to get you to the next piece, the next conversation. There's a great story that I have with one of the gentlemen who went to the medical school where I work, and he didn't want to meet with me. And my colleague said, you really just should. And so what was supposed to be a 1-hour lunch turned into a 3-hour lunch, because every sentence he said, I would volley back with something else, and the dialogue just flowed. And today his family asked me to be in his 85th birthday video surprise. I mean, he's 85 and he's a little cranky, and I love him for that. So the idea was just, how do we connect? I mean, part of it is that's what I've spent my entire career doing, is finding ways to connect, and finding ways to connect where you know a lot about someone, but you don't want to come across as like super creepy, like, so I hear you have 3 kids, one in college, and finding that balance. But yeah, building relationships, making connections, building bridges, all of that, it's hard work. It is, especially, it might not seem this way, but I am very much an introvert. I get recharged by being by myself. So it is exhausting to go into a cocktail reception and flutter around and make people find each other and so on and so forth. But that's what we do. That's the business that I'm in. And whether it's, at the university or in my consulting work, it's how do I make those connections, not only from me to someone else, but from person A to person B.
Beautiful. And in hearing that, as we land on in, before you share some takeaway tips, what is a success story that you can share? Something that you feel, you've overcome, which is huge for those who are listening and tuning in, who are introverts, to be able to be a bridge builder while showing up as an introvert in the world. And as an introvert extrovert, I'm like about it, like that ability to pull in, but to connect. Share with us a success story of the way that you showing up helped to spark another person or a team to show up differently.
So I came to work I lived in Pittsburgh for many years, and then I came to work in Philadelphia 11 years ago. And at that university, there was a woman who I'll never forget the first meeting, and she scowled at me most of the time. And I remember being slightly terrified of her. And then as I started in the job and realized how incredibly competent and creative and brilliant she was, we started working even more closely. And so while she had been at a director level, by the time I left the institution, she became an associate vice president, because I knew she needed to be there. I knew that's what she had. And then when I left, she came with me. I created a job for her at my current institution. And so now, about a year ago, I said, look, she's being heavily recruited. We need to keep her. And I was able to get her promoted even further. So I call her my work wife, which but having someone who is not afraid to tell me that, no, that is not a good idea, or let's argue about that, or let's have good, healthy conflict about it. But being able to raise her while I have also risen in my career. I mean, we've been together for 11 years now, and it's just it's like magic. And so to now have her at a place where the board members recognize her, the chairman of the board asks her opinion. I mean, I just think it's tremendous that we have been able to work so well together and learn from each other, and be able to, really help her shine as well, because she makes me look good. So help her shine as well as the department shine. And just, I mean, she's truly a spectacular individual. So that I would say is a success story where, we started out, we weren't quite sure, but she'll tell the story of, yeah, I remember the first meeting we had. I was like, okay, this woman might know what she's doing. And we have our fights, but we have worked so well together. And I'm looking forward to the next couple of years. So that's what makes me feel great, is that I've been able to help someone else really, really grow and find confidence in new environments and new spaces, because I believe in her and I know she can do it, and she knows now she can do it. So that's been a really rewarding experience.
That's powerful to hear. And what I love about that is that as you rise, you're supporting someone else, and even powerfully supporting a woman to rise, as you cultivate. And for those who missed the gem, make sure you catch it. Being open to someone who's going to have your back, that's going to spot something, who can say yes and say nope, and bring some healthy conflict so that you can be able to see things differently, right? Because if we can do that, we can shift that. Sometimes we shy away and that chips away at our confidence, but be confident enough to hear difference so that you can grow together, right?
Yep.
Absolutely. So I love the fact that you shared that. And so here at Kumba Health, here on SLS Academy, on our show, we are so committed to helping 1 million ambitious leaders to be able to deepen self-love, transform barriers to mind-body health, and make sure that you can align your vision so that you can launch that legacy that you deserve. And hearing your story today, I'm sure everyone tuning in can understand and resonate with the fact that you are a branch of that, of the way that you touch lives, of the way that you are showing up as the love medicine that the world needs. So I just want to thank you for having, being an amazing guest and coming on to our show today. Any closing words that you want to give as we come to our time, and I share how people can connect with you?
Closing remarks, I would just say, I guess if you have a choice, you should always just be Wonder Woman.
There it is.
There it is.
There it is. Absolutely. Yeah. And if you want to share below, what is your superhero? If you are Wonder Woman or something similar, go ahead and comment below. Yes. Subscribe, like, hurrah, give a cheer, give a ricochet.
Absolutely. We love a flamenco dancer emoji.
Exactly. All of that. All of that. All of it. Absolutely.
Yeah. And I just, my passion has been, since probably I came out of the womb, has been helping women and helping women succeed and thrive in the way that suits them the best. And so I post a lot on LinkedIn, little tidbits, little stories, case studies. So, some of these things that I've talked about today have been on there. And I love to connect with people. So if you find me on LinkedIn, and, it has just been such a pleasure. I was so blown away by your facilitation of our team meeting. And it's been a great relationship that we've been able to form.
Absolutely. I 100% agree. And the honor was all mine. That I never take for granted the trust of being able to be led into those kinds of spaces and being able to facilitate, and seeing the way that you show up with your team showed me that, wow, she really is Wonder Woman. So I said, I absolutely want to connect and continue to build from here. So please do check out her case studies on LinkedIn. Go ahead and make sure that you reach out and say, oh my goodness, I saw you on the show, or connect and say, oh my gosh, I want to hear more. You can also see the show notes below to be able to get information about how to tag and refer and continue just to be able to build with this amazing strategist, leadership development, support and consultant. And in closing, we want to make sure that we celebrate all that who are coming. So if you have stayed until the very end, we want to give you a shout out right now to say that you are showing up on purpose for a purpose. Give you a big everyday superhero shout out. Thank you so much for tuning in today. And just remember that when she remembered who she was, the game changed. We will see you at the next show. Thank you, Dr. Carrie Collins, again for being our guest. And
Thank you.
wishing you self-love, self-care, and success, everyone. Peace.
Bye.
Bye.